Science, welcome back with us on ALSA English Podcast Volume 2 presented by English Development Division's ALSA Local Chapter Universitas Brawijaya. Okay, first of all, I'd like to say hello to our listeners, to our loyal listeners, ALSA English Podcast Volume 2. Hi All Science, how are you? Are you in a good health or in a good condition? I hope you guys are doing well right now because the weather is so erratic and unstable, so you have to take care of yourself, keep your food safety and healthy. Okay, anyways, about 3 months ago, ALSA English Podcast Volume 1 was aired discussing about a special economic zone in collaboration with KAK Singhasari, and now we are back with the discussion that is certainly no less interesting. But before I tell you what is the title is, I want to introduce myself first. Hi, All Science. My name is Kirana, and I will be the host for ALSA English Podcast Volume 2. Okay, like what I've just said before, in this volume, we will be talking about the never-ending legal issues or cases in Indonesia, even in the world. But can you guys guess it? Like, what is it? What is our discussion today? Because I think some of you guys will get the right answers. Okay, without further ado, I will just tell you right away. Okay, we will be talking about corruptions, and we will discuss about the substance of ALSA Legal English Handbook Volume 9, entitled How is Corruption Ingrained in Indonesia? And I'm not speaking alone right now. I am accompanied by my two friends, special guests. Hi Naira, hi Isan.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. So Isan and Naira is not only staff from English Development Division but also the authors of ALSA Legal English Handbook Volume 9. And I want to ask you guys, how are you guys?
I'm doing well. I'm currently a bit busy about some things, but I'm doing well.
It's like, yeah, our normal days as law students. And how about you, Isan?
Yeah, everything has been going great. Everything, just like Naira, I've been kind of busy, but yeah, but everything just
okay. I'm glad to know that you guys still surviving until now. Okay, before we start and dig deeper, would you like to introduce yourself to our loyal listeners?
Hello, Science. My name is Naira Rayana, and I am a staff of English Development Division of ALSA Local Chapter Universitas Brawijaya, and also one of the authors of ALSA Legal English Handbook Volume 9. Thank you so much for the opportunity, guys.
Nice to meet you, Naira, and let's go.
Hello everyone, my name is Iksan Maulana. You guys can just call me Iksan, and also just like Naira, I'm also a staff of English Development Division and also one of the authors of ALSA Legal English Handbook Volume 9. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you guys here again.
Okay, wow, thank you so much, Naira and Isan, for taking your time to come here between your busy schedules. Now that you guys mentioning that you are guys kind of busy, what are you guys busy with right now, if I can know that?
Well, lately I've been busy with, again, since college hasn't started yet, so my business is still about organization, ALSA, and my other organization. So yeah, it's been kind of great actually.
Kind of good roller coaster.
Yes, sir.
Okay, how about you, Naira?
Same like Iksan, I'm also busy with my organizations. Like aside from ALSA, I'm busy with Women's March Malang and also with PKKMB.
Oh, you're also joined Women March. It's like a community in Malang. Not only Malang, or national?
Community, like international actually.
International.
Yes, but it's the Malang one.
Mm-hmm.
The Malang chapter.
Yes.
It talks about the movement of women.
Yes.
And the human rights thing. Okay, so that's interesting, and I'm so proud to have such a productive friends like you guys as my special guest, especially. But before we discuss more specifically and deeply, at this time we as law students must be aware, very aware, with the issues or cases that occurs in our surrounding, especially Indonesia. And I want to mention that one of the legal issues that is never ending is corruption. I think you guys must be still have agree with that because yeah, it never stopped from our history, from our regimes until the Reformation era. It never stopped. So, in your opinion, as a law student, what is the definition of corruption, and from your perspective, how is it how rampant is it in Indonesia?
Okay, so I think corruption is lawful, unlawful, and like unforgivable, inappropriate acts that can be done by politicians, by officials, by public servants, by civil servants, and they do this in order to enrich themselves by abusing their authority of that is given by the public. I know it sounds really bad, right? Like abusing their authority against the public, against their right. However, and ironically, it is actually quite rampant in Indonesia.
Mm-mm. I agree. It's like very familiar in around us. I mean, not only the public servants, but the most close one. Not we haven't known yet, but I think there's a possibility that corruption is around us. Okay, how about you, Naira?
Well, I think corruption is actually can be caused by many factors, like such as corruption is deeply embedded bad culture in Indonesia that starts from the surrounding environment and also in education. Like for example, a small child is ordered by his mom to buy some things like vegetables, but then he doesn't keep the change, but instead buy some snacks or something like ice creams maybe.
Yeah,
Like it's the small things that embedded, like it's really common in Indonesia.
yeah, it's really familiar for us, right? In the elementary school, maybe have you guys done it before?
Actually, yeah.
Actually, yeah. So it's a culture, guys. The corruption is cultures here, and I honestly really agree with your opinion, guys, because it is true that corruption is unlawfully action in Indonesia. Like the public official is often come with public officials who keep the country's assets for their own business, for their family or their close one, and it's very sacred for us as a civilians. And yeah, I really like Naira analogy. It really illustrates the cultures, the corruption culture in Indonesia that really ingrained deeper. And yeah, by doing it, you remember as a law students, the definition of corruption written in law number 20 of 2001. It's like exam. It's like an exam. Okay.
Well, actually, the definition that has been given by ASEAN is similar with the definition in law number 20 of 2001. The corruption is defined as any person who unlawfully enriching themselves or others, or a corporation that harms state finances or the state economy. And the crime of corruption is punishable by life imprisonment or imprisonment for minimum of 4 years and maximum of 20 years, as well as fine of at least 50 million rupiah and maximum of 1 billion rupiah. Like but it's actually really small amount of fine compared to how much they corrupted.
Yeah, like the previous cases, there's businessman who corrupt 250 billions.
Yes.
And yeah, it's still the sadly the fact that he still can get the infrastructure, the ability to buy a cell inside of the, what is that, penjara? Yeah,
Jail, yeah.
jail. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah, it's very ironic. And how about you, Isan? Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think I just want to add a little more information. Like under certain circumstances, a death penalty can be also imposed, and the death penalty can take many forms, such as bribery, embezzlement, graft, extortion, kickbacks, lobbying, and nepotism.
Yeah, I really agree that maybe our listeners still not unfamiliar with some characteristic of corruption. Maybe you guys still know that corruption is just forms of characteristic, but the fact is corruption has a lot of various characteristic of forms. For example, like what just Isan said, graft, embezzlement, nepotism, and others. And each forms or each characteristics has their own sanction and punishment adjust to the level of the criminal. And with such ingrained corruptions, does corruption have an influential political landscape in Indonesia, like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it actually does, because like corruption's impact on the political issue is quite complex. It actually undermines the trust in the government and institution, which results in a lack of confidence in the political system. And this can be shown by protests outside the state place in Jakarta and also in other places that happen quite often, where demonstrator wore mask of President Yudhoyono, it's back then, with a Pinocchio nose, which implies that the government has been lying to the civilians about anti-corruption
Yeah, yeah.
efforts.
I've heard that issue before. It's like a movement from the civilians to describe the government that times. Like they want to mask themselves with public servants. In this case, is President Yudhoyono. Like, yeah, it's just a movement, and I totally agree with those movement actually. How about you, Naira?
Well, during Suharto's regime, corruption was centralized, but with decentralization, it has spread, leading more individuals to seek bribes and kickbacks. This shift has resulted in wider range of corrupt activities and making it harder to combat. Decentralization also actually reduced the overall scale of corruption, but it also increased the number of officials involved. So it creates a more complex and widespread issue.
Yeah, right. I get your opinion. I get your point that the impacts of corruption itself is broad. Like every sectors can have an impact from corruption, like education, economic development, and others. And I want to give you guys an information. Corruption Perception Index, or we have known as CPI. It's like an institution or agency by international government. It provides transparency data or transparency information for the government's movement, for their assets and their expenses and income. It helps us to know and track their movement in their economic things. Okay, so according to recent CPI report, one of country in ASEAN, maybe you guys can guess it because it's like the most modern countries in ASEAN, ranked as one the least corrupt activities countries globally. So yeah, but in the contrast, there are countries in ASEAN like Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar, but they still have higher level of corruption. So reflecting on the situation of corruption in ASEAN, do you know how ASEAN countries deal with corruptions? Like what their legal efforts are, their deals to combat corruptions?
So in ASEAN, corruption still remains as a significant barrier to progress. And I read an article which there is a writer named Hiller states that emphasize that assessing corruption and good governance, which is a key, is not merely an academic concern for development economics, political theories, and statistics. Therefore, a cooperative and comprehensive strategy utilizing both formal and informal ways is essential for effectively addressing corruption in Southeast Asian countries. The formal strategy for tackling corruption involves two strong legal frameworks, the treaty-based and non-treaty-based approaches. And the key aspect of the treaty-based approach is the ratification of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, which you guys can just UNCAC.
Yeah.
and by all Asian members. This treaty offers a thorough legal framework for preventing and combating corruption, serving as a solid foundation for regional cooperation.
And also, the Memorandum of Understanding on Cooperation for Preventing and Combating Corruption is established by the ASEAN Parties Against Corruption, or you can call it ASEAN PAC, which promotes collaborations between member states in their anti-corruption initiatives. These legal instruments work towards achieving a more transparent and accountable region by promoting open government practices and improving access to information. They seek to hinder the establishment of corrupt practices.
Oh yeah, so there are, based on your information, there are several steps or efforts by the agents to combat corruption, to eradicate corruption. And from what I know, there are two ways, from the treaty-based and then the non-treaty-based approaches as legal frameworks. Is that right? Okay, but it was an ASEAN move. In Indonesia, we also have an agency called KPK, or Komisi Pemberantasan Korupsi.
Yep.
You must be very familiar with that, right? Of course, you have to, because it's very important for us. Okay, in your opinion, as a law student, has the KPK's performance until now have been effective in eradicating corruption in Indonesia?
Well, in Indonesia, the issue of corruption has always been increasing since the past few years, and the roots of it mainly come from the established political system and parties. KPK itself faces several institutional limitations that hinder its effectiveness in combating corruption. These limitations include weak institutions, lack of transparency, and inadequate legal framework.
Yeah, agree with that. So how about you?
I think to answer that question, the performance of the KPK itself in Indonesia is still quite questionable and still considered to be ineffective. Why? Well, this opinion doesn't come up without any reason. There are several reasons, namely the decrease in cases handled, with examples the potential for state losses in cases investigated also decreased quite really significant, from 6.2 trillion rupiah in 2020 to only 805 billion in 2021, which is a big decrease.
Yes, it's a big decrease. Like between just a year, like the decrease is very high. Okay. So based on your answers, I agree with your opinion, because the KPK's movement, the KPK's efforts to combat corruption is still ineffective and needs to be improved, optimizing, and upgraded, especially for their system to eradicating corruption. But besides the KPK's legal efforts, do you agree that public awareness is also important and influential in reducing level of corruption in Indonesia?
Well, yes, absolutely, because in this modern era, social media is almost like a prime things for us.
Yeah, primary.
Like there are so many social media out there, like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook,
X.
TikTok, everything. Yeah, X. And I do think that corruption eradication programs can be socialized through those social medias, by making a campaign activities, and those campaigns are considered to be one form of communication activities carried out in a planned manner in order to create certain impacts on the public. And I do think it is one of the effective ways that the government can do in order to get rid of corruption, slowly by slowly.
Yeah, we can use properly, like the technology advancement that now is currently enhanced.
Yes.
So how about you?
I also agree that public awareness is very important. The success of achieving campaign objectives is largely determined by planning. As far as I know, there are 5 aspects to make a campaign successful, and those are actors, message, channels, targets, and strategies. The anti-corruption campaign program must be planned in such a way as to include those aspects of sources, media message, and delivery techniques, so that the objectives of the campaign can be achieved. And also, I really agree with you that we can use technology to make the campaign or the movement more effective because technology can reach other people from
Around the world.
all around the world. Yes.
Yeah, there's no limitation in
Yes.
social media, right? Yeah, I agree. So from what Ihsan said, we can use technology enhancement for as a platforms for campaigns, and from what you said, from Naira said, we can the campaign is not only just like a regular campaigns. There's aspects that needs to be done first, like what is that, actors, messages, channels, targets, and strategies that needs to be focused on to reach the target properly. Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, are there any other steps taken by Indonesia to combat corruption between like what we've just discussed, like KPK's legal efforts and technology advancement, campaign, public awareness, like that?
Aside from the establishment of the KPK, there are various non-governmental organizations or NGOs
Yeah, yeah.
and also other movements who contribute to the against corruption in Indonesia. Other strategies to combat corruption include the formation of organizations such as GMPK or Gerakan Masyarakat Perangi Korupsi and Gerak or Gerakan Anti Korupsi Indonesia. And the government has also amended several laws to keep them relevant to current corruption cases. This is contained in Law number 20 of 2001 on the amendment of Law number 31 of 1999, which addresses the eradication of corruption. This is also approved by the general public considering how corruption harms the country, so efforts to eradicate it must continue. And one of it is by changing the law.
Yeah, like it's the importance of community or public participations
Yes.
in the developing our rules and regulation
Yes.
to make government have a different perspective as a civilians. Okay, how about you, Isan?
So since I've been a law student for 1 year and I've made like a lot of makalah involving this corruption things, and also I contributed in creating ALEH. So I do know that the government has made several efforts to combat this corruption, like again for like in educating the civilians by improving the system and repressive efforts. And the campaign carried out by the government is actually a preventive measure through anti-corruption education, with the hope that people can have awareness about corruption in their behavior and culture. And the system improvement are carried out in ways such as encouraging transparency of state officials, such as the KPK in reporting LHKPN, and LHKPN is state official web report, and also modernizing the public service with online and integrated system to make them more transparent and effective. Then after doing all of those, the repressive action are taken so that the perpetrators of corruption can be brought to justice.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with the. It's related again with the technology enhancement, right? There are a system called LHKPN.
Yep.
Like what just Isan said. It's a platform for us as a civilians to track public official assets there. So if your favorite ones have have a miss on their economic stabilization, you can know from the LHKPN.
Yes.
That's okay, good. So actually Indonesia has several steps and legal efforts to combat corruption, and starting from improving the education is like the foundation, it's like the root from every child to our future generation, to embedded that corruption culture is not good for them, and the impact is not only in criminal but also can affect like economic development, and then also cultural and social justice and something like that. So the impact is very broad, and like what just Naira said, freeing NGOs is also important as the legal efforts in Indonesia, because from the NGOs movement, government can value their perspective, can get the information or suggestions. So government can upgrade the regulations or the system that needs to be improved in KPKs. Okay, so however, according to our discussion earlier, there are still many aspects, right? Even though there are legal effort that is good, like NGOs and technology enhancement, but there are still many aspects that needs to be improved, maximized and optimized in order to achieve our goal where corruption is eradicated in Indonesia. Yeah, maybe that was the last question I will give you guys today. And before I end today's podcast, do you guys have like any words to say for us to describe your expression, your impression in this agenda? Maybe if you guys have a sentence, it's okay.
So for me, it's really an opportunity for me to be able to speak here as a speaker, and also this is actually my second time in ALSA English Podcast. So thank you so much, Kirana, for giving me the opportunity, for trusting me to be one of the speakers with Naira here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. You're welcome. Oh yeah, for information, Isan is one of the hosts from ALSA English Podcast Volume 1. Yeah, watch it, right? Watch it after this. And how about you, Naira?
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity, the great opportunity to be in this podcast. This is actually my second time to hosting a podcast, so it's really a great opportunity. Thank you so much for Kirana and also Ihsan as my partner here. Yes.
Okay, I'm the one who have to thank you guys because you guys spend your time between your busy schedules. Like, I think all the talks that we gave earlier, we've been discussing about corruption and the substance of ALSA Legal English Handbook Volume 9 is very beneficial for our listeners. It's very insightful and give you new knowledge, right? Because maybe there's some of you who still not familiar with the corruption situation in Indonesia or even the world. Okay, before I close this podcast, I would like to thank Naira and Ihsan once more for being willing to be our special guests and exchange ideas on ALSA English Podcast Volume 2. I wish you guys all the success from your studies, college, and other activities that you guys been running. Okay, we have come to end of these activities, our listeners, but don't be sad or don't be worried because we will back again on ALSA English Podcast Volume 2, Volume 3. Okay, it's a typo, but Volume 3 that will certainly discuss the more interesting topic, and of course, obviously, will be very useful and insightful for our loyal listeners. So let's end here for our podcast. Stay healthy and thank you so much for watching and listening our podcast. Thank you. See you on the next occasion and ALSA English Podcast Volume 3. Bye bye.
Thank you, guys.
Watch the ALSA English Podcast.
Yeah, watch it. Here.
Here.
Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.